all so much for coming tonight. We've brought together 7 incredible speakers who, through their ideas and their work, truly showcase the best of humanity. Each of them has spent months preparing to share something meaningful, thoughtful, and impactful with all of you. To kick us off, please join me in welcoming our first speaker, Dr. Matthew Gombolay. Dr. Gombolay is an associate professor at Georgia Tech, where he leads the Core Robotics Lab. His research focuses on human-centered AI, studying how autonomous systems interpret intent, make decisions, and interact with people in high-stakes environments. He'll be presenting his talk, Can Robots Have Morals?
Can robots have morals? And if so, who gets to design them? This isn't just a philosophical question anymore. Robots and the AI systems that power them are already shaping our world. They influence how surgeons operate on cancer patients. Autonomous vehicles impact our morning commutes. And robots have already changed how we fight our wars. So the question isn't, will robots reflect our values? It's which values, and how do they get there? Let's look at an example of a real system used in healthcare, analyzed in a 2019 paper in the journal Science. The goal was simple: identify the patients that would benefit most from receiving extra care. The model was trained on real patient data, things like age, medical conditions, healthcare use, and cost. Those predictions were then used to decide who would be enrolled in high-risk care management programs. Programs that would provide additional attention, monitoring, and preventative care. But what happened? At the same level of sickness, Black patients were more likely to receive a lower score from the model, and therefore less likely to be enrolled in high-risk care programs. Importantly, the model was never told which patients were Black, and yet its decisions still fell along racial lines. This isn't just about race, though. It's about how people interact with healthcare systems, who can access it, who can afford it, who can use it, who seeks it out, and who receives it. Because when these models are trained on our data, they don't just reflect these patterns, they amplify them. So what did the model learn? It learned to predict cost from patient data. And those cost predictions were used to decide who would be enrolled in extra care. And so in a sense, cost became a primary driver of care. But care and cost and need are not the same thing. The model was given the wrong training objective. In AI, we sometimes call this reward misspecification. The system used a proxy, a shortcut that was correlated with what we cared about, but not what we needed. Now imagine this system isn't just online, it's in your home, on a physical robot, taking actions. You give it a command. Give the patient the right medication. You guide the robot through performing the task to teach it the right behavior. And then when you call on it to act upon its own, it makes a decision, not based upon understanding, but based upon the patterns it's learned from the data. And when it takes those actions and it makes decisions, and it gets it wrong, it doesn't just get the wrong decision. It does the wrong thing. And worse yet, it doesn't even know that it got it wrong. That's what we study in my lab. What happens when we deploy real robots into the world? What happens when they fail? And how do we design them to align with our goals? That's exactly what my colleagues and I did. we put an openly available system to the test and gave it a command. Pack the good doll in the brown box. But what does good mean? Is it the cleanest doll? The safest? The newest? The robot doesn't understand that word. So when it sees the instruction, it makes a decision based upon the patterns it's learned from its training data. And when it does, some people get left behind. But this isn't just a random mistake. It's a predictable one. The robot did not misunderstand the word good. It never understood it to begin with. It used a shortcut for something it could not actually measure. So what's going on underneath the hood? In many modern robotic systems that we envision today, you're going to give a robot a language command, some kind of instruction for the task that you want it to perform to assist you. That language, somewhere between the lines, captures your intent. But the robot can't see that. The robot sees a collection of ordered words in an instruction. And it tries to figure out what actions to take in response to those words. And to help it figure out the right actions, it uses its training data, the patterns it has learned. If your instructions are ambiguous, it will fill that ambiguity in with your training data. And when the training data conflict with your values, what will the robot actually do? So the key here is that your intent is not the system's representation of what needs to be done. So, should we just quit? Should we stop pursuing AI and robotics? There is a vision for how robots could benefit society. Robots may one day perform surgeries at a fraction of the cost, achieve incredible safety rates, and save the lives of many. Robots may help this country stay competitive in the global economy, given that we have an aging workforce. Robots could help us to age in our own homes, to grow old with our families, stay in our communities, by helping us not just to serve as a butler, but actually to help give us the minimal support necessary for us to stay engaged in not only taking care of ourselves, but taking care of our loved ones. I also think that robots can one day, as they already are, help us to explore our galaxy and boldly go where no one has gone before. If we're going to solve that problem, we have to solve two key issues here. One is technical, and one is the human challenge. Let's start with some technical issues. First, if we want to encode a set of values or morality into a robotic system, we might think of developing some constitution, a set of if-then statements, rules, do this, don't do this. If you see this, do this, otherwise don't do that. But yet, you will never find all the rules you need to cover every possible condition the robot will experience. And as you add more and more rules, they become inconsistent with each other, and the robot becomes brittle. It becomes unusable. It just can't do anything and follow all of the rules. So many in our field of study instead look to soft constraints or rewards and say, robot, if you took this action, you get a high reward. Do more of that. And if you took this other action that the human didn't like, do less of that. You get a negative reward. And while these systems do have improved flexibility, they don't typically come with guarantees for the complexity of the models that are required for these systems to be useful in the world. Third, these systems behave differently in the laboratory and our computer simulations compared to when they're running in your home. There's one problem where the questions we ask it, the data and the scenarios that we presented, are just going to be different. We can't anticipate every possible use case, how you will interact with the system, and that makes it hard for us to certify that the system will act appropriately. But the system may also understand when it's being tested and change how it behaves and what it says in order to pass the test, and then behave differently when it thinks it's not being tested. Let's talk about the human problem. Who decides what is good? Is it you? Does everyone get their own robotic system and morality framework? What happens when our robots get together and have conflicting values? Whose values take priority? Companies. What happens when consumer values and interests are not represented by the values of the systems that are being developed? Governments. Governments, too, can misuse technology to control their population. All of us. Well, how on earth are we going to all agree with each other? I think this reduces to a fundamental question. What is a person worth? Across many diverse cultures, faith traditions, and philosophical frameworks is the idea that humans have intrinsic value. The United States Declaration of Independence enshrines this, saying that we have inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In the Christian faith tradition, drawing from the Hebrew Bible, is the notion of imago Dei, that we are made in the image of God, that we have intrinsic value just for being people. And even the philosopher Nietzsche, who opposed the idea of intrinsic human value, would likely also be opposed to the kinds of robotic systems that we are developing today, for they strip us of our agency. They reduce us to simple patterns to be learned, a set of inputs and outputs to be optimized for our comfort, satisfaction, engagement, to get us to like, comment, and subscribe. If we want robots to support our agency, our ability to make decisions and to become better than we were yesterday, we need to figure out how to develop these systems to understand that humans have inherent value. Not because we want to be optimized for comfort, but because our dignity demands it. So remember, these systems don't just emerge on their own. They are trained on our data, built by our choices, and deployed by us into our world. We are not just consumers of these robotic systems. We are actively shaping what they become. But remember, this is a two-way street. These systems are shaping what we see, what we choose, and how we behave. Just as we train these systems are training us. So, can robots have morals? Maybe, but if they do, they won't come from the machines. They'll come from us. So we need to take responsibility for the data we give it, the design choices that we make, and how we deploy these systems. We need to be deliberate and judicious to make sure that these systems act in a way that respects our agency, that supports our intrinsic value. Can robots have morals? Only if we can. Thank you.